Hello, everybody. My name is Marsh, and welcome to my spoiler discussion of Dan Simmons' Hyperion. Let's jump into it. So, if you could leave a like and subscribe, that'd be greatly appreciated. But let's go ahead and get started because I can't wait to talk about this. Dan Simmons' Hyperion. Whew, man, what a novel. This is probably my favorite book of all time now. It broke me. I cried. I'll talk about that later when I get to it. But I think what I just want to do with this video is just go through each section, like each short story, what I enjoyed about it, and what I got from it as well. And in case you already don't know, this is a spoiler-filled discussion. So please, if you haven't read the book, this is your chance now. Click off this video and go read it. It's a must-read, even if you don't like sci-fi. Okay, let's jump into it though. So to start off, we basically start with Consul on a ship, and we get introduced to Hyperion, the ship itself. I can't remember its name, and all the scenario of the pilgrimage and everyone there. And we also get told that there's a spy that's also there as well to look out for. Now, basically, these pilgrims get together. They come around the table on the other side. We got a long trip we got to do together to get to Hyperion to see the Shrike. Let's go ahead and just tell our story along the way. So the first one is the story of the priest. This is probably my second favorite story, close to first. I'd say overall enjoyment of it might be first, but I'll give that to the one that made me cry, which you guys probably are guessing. You already know which one it is later. Priest story is not about the priest himself, Lenar Hoyt. It's about Father Paul Deer, I believe. And he goes to Hyperion to study these Bikura people. Now, these Bikura people are bald, they wear robes, and I think it's three score and 10 is what they go. And I believe a score is 20, so it'd be 70. 3 score and 10 is what they like go by. That's their thing, and basically there's always 70 of them. And it's about the priest learning about this society and also about the fear of just like trying to escape. It is a horror, so we see his friend get killed, and then he's trapped with these people, and he's wondering if they're going to kill him any day. And the only reason he wasn't killed is because he was wearing a cross on his chest, the cruciform, as they say. And so he is trying to learn about what this cruciform is, what the 3 score and 10 are, how they became like this, because essentially they're the development of like a certain sect of people who were put here, and this is how they evolved on Hyperion. And I just thought it was really interesting overall, his journal. I mean, when we discover what the actual cruciform is and we see the Shrike for the first time, holy crap. Like when he went down in the cave, and then he's just like seeing all these things. He sees the altar, and then they catch him. They force him to go there. And then he gets the cruciform actually placed on him. And then we learn how the 3 score and 10 have developed because of this. So basically, every time they die, they regenerate. And when they regenerate, it kind of wipes their palate. They remember a little bit, but they lose a little each time they die. And so after hundreds and hundreds of years of this evolution to never die, it caused them to become, as they say, like, have the mind of an adolescence. They don't really do anything out of their pattern. They can't really comprehend certain things, and they're just living by the cruciform. And it's very interesting to see how they handle that, and like the look on evolution in the sense of how the Shrike is controlling the evolution, because then we see later after he gets the cruciform on him, that's when he learns about them dying and how they come back, and he just wants to escape. But every time he tries to escape now, it starts burning and hurting, and then he collapses. And so basically he's trapped with no escape now and nothing to do. And he still is determined to leave. And it's so tragic. Like he finally, I believe it's the Tesla forest or the fire forest, one of the two, and he gets there. He thinks he escapes, and then he dies. But as we learn, when Father Hoyt went to visit, he never died. He was like impaled in where he gained the cruciform, where the Shrike is, and he was just set there to be tortured for years and years and years, constantly regenerating and being in pain for so long. And it was just so torturous and crazy to see that. And not only that, after he finishes telling the story, he goes back to his room, and then Consul comes in the room, and we learned that to free Paul Deere from his suffering, Lenar Hoyt took the cruciform upon himself. I don't know how he was able to escape. That's something we may learn later, but he took it upon himself, and now he's dying because of it. And we see him like clawing at his chest and collapse, and basically Consul like confronts him. He says, "You have the cruciform now in your chest," and he has to admit it because he's literally dying in his room. And that's the first character, the priest, and why he's going on the journey. The next story is that of the soldier with Fedman Kassad. Now, this one was interesting. I didn't think I was going to like it, to be honest. Not because like it's just like military stuff, but like when I'm reading fiction oftentimes, I feel like I tend to, I tend to like not care for the action as much. Like it's interesting, but I have trouble keeping like up with it. So I prefer more dialogue and those type of moments, political intrigue. But it was actually very interesting. He basically is in a relationship with, I guess it's the Shrike, or it's like someone who's been affected by the time tombs. And every battle he does in past, he ends up having sex with this lady after each battle and falling in love with her. And he essentially fell in love with like a computer program. But we learned that she's not just a computer program, and that she, I think, is the Shrike. So eventually, he goes to Hyperion, and he goes to the time tombs. He's introduced to the Shrike, and his woman is there. I forgot her name. His woman is there, and they kill a bunch of like raiders that are coming after them and everything, which was actually really cool. The way they controlled time, they like is like the Flash sort of, but not super speed. They would slow down time. I guess Quicksilver maybe, and then they would like kill them based off that. And he was fighting with the Shrike and killing all these people. And it's weird because we're thinking of the Shrike as like, we don't know what he is, if he's a bad person or not, or like what exactly is he. And the Shrike goes away, and then he starts having sex again with his like girlfriend, and then she turns into the Shrike and almost like impales him. And that was insane. Like just like the thought of that and what he had to go through, it's like crazy to comprehend. And we also learn here about the thorn tree, where there's like multiple bodies just impaled upon this like tree of thorns, which is like a crazy visual I can't even like describe or like properly or encapsulate. But no, it was pretty good overall. It surprised me. I thought I wasn't going to enjoy it, but it did a lot for like building up the Shrike as an entity and what it is. Next is the Poet's Tale. I didn't know how to feel at first. This one was actually kind of funny. Not to laugh, but when he gets his like brain injury, Martin Salinas, he all he can say is like pee pee poo poo and stuff like that. So my childish mind thought it was funny. I feel like this portion is something that we can relate to the most, his story, in the aspect of AI. So basically he's an author, and it's very hard to be an author and a poet in this day and age because AI can chunk out constant media, and no one wants to pick it up. But he writes something called the Hyperion Cantos, and it becomes extremely popular, and it's basically looked at as like the Bible, where you just have to have a copy even if you never read it. And so he gets a lot of fame from that, but then he tries to build on it, and no one cares anymore about what he writes. So he has to write some schlocky stuff for like the company just to survive and get money until his debts are paid. And he does all that until eventually he finds someone named King Billy on Hyperion who says, "I'll pay for your living, your food, and all of that, and all you need to do is write what you actually want to write," because King Billy appreciates real poetry. And so he does that, and whenever he's doing that, his muse is essentially the Shrike. So the Shrike starts killing people, and like the King Billy starts to be like, "What's going on? We need to figure this out." And basically, the more and more he's writing about about like his poetry, the more and more the Shrike kills. And it's because the Shrike is his muse. And there were such crazy visuals. So King Billy later confronts him, and just the visuals alone that Dan Simmons like mentions is crazy. So he confronts him, he beats him up, and then he starts burning his poetry because he needs to destroy the Shrike, I guess, or to stop all the killing. And then the Shrike shows up and literally like impales him, and like I believe he set him on fire too. I read that part like a few weeks ago, so I can't remember exactly, but it was scary what he did to King Billy, and it's just like, whoa, who is the, like, what is the Shrike? And we saw again in the Shrike, one of the killings, the Shrike did the same thing they did to Kassad and had sex with a person, except that person didn't get away, and so they just like impaled like a porcupine or something, and it was crazy. But going back to the aspect where I said this is like the most relatable in terms of aspect of AI, with AI developing a lot nowadays, I was watching the Brandon Sanderson podcast, Intentionally Blank, and they mentioned that it's kind of scary in the sense that what if AI gets so good that they can replace authors and actually just write books for the public? And that's exactly what happened in Hyperion. The AI replaced most of the authors and poets and writes all media for the public. And it's all generalized and flown through that way. And so seeing what Dan Simmons wrote in 1989, reflecting today's society and the development of AI, and it's literally going in that direction, is crazy. What do you think about that? Because I thought that was, like, thinking about it now, it's pretty mind-blowing. And especially with, like, ChatGPT and what's happening there. Okay, on to the next one, though. And, the Scholar's Tale. The Scholar's Tale broke me. I don't think it's the same reason that it broke other people. It's obviously very sad, but I'll explain what happened, even though it may bring up some insecurities or whatever. But basically with the Scholar's Tale, so the scholar is Sol Weintraub. So he's studying the story of Abraham, where God essentially told Abraham, sacrifice this goat to show that you're loyal to me. He does it, and then eventually he builds up and he's like, sacrifice your son to show your loyalty to me. And things start happening to him because he doesn't want to sacrifice his son, and so worse and worse things start to happen until eventually he does take his son to the mountain and he's about to kill him when God says, stop, I know that you're loyal because you were going to do it. And that's how it goes. I'm not an expert when it comes to the Bible, so I apologize if I got any of the details wrong, but basically Sol Weintraub is studying that story of Abraham, and his story gets mirrored with the story of Abraham in a way. So his daughter Rachel grows up, wonderful kid, goes to college, and then gets sent to Hyperion to study the time tombs. Now, when she's there, she falls in love with another guy. They've been dating for like 2 years, but eventually one of the events happens, and there's like a weird seismic earthquake or shake, and her time starts flipping in reverse. So to describe it, it's like a mix of 50 First States and Benjamin Button. So basically, she's reversing through time. So let's say if your life is a data log, like let's say it's each finger is a data log. So this is like 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020. Basically each day she loses another day in her data log. So like we'll go after aspect of a year. After a year, she loses 2023. She can't remember anything that happened. So she'll live her day out, not remember anything the next day. And her memory is slowly going away. And she's also aging, or reverse aging with it. That's the Benjamin Button part, which just as a concept is terrifying. I think this was before 50 First Dates and Benjamin Button. So if so, that's pretty crazy. If he was the first one to come up with this concept, I don't know for sure, but it's pretty insane. The part that got me though was basically her boyfriend devotes his life to trying to find a cure for her, to get her to remember everything again and to stop the reverse aging. And she is, I think, about 10-ish years old, or 7 to 10, around that range. And she doesn't remember him at all anymore, but he remembers her. And he goes to visit her to tell her father that he can't find the cure. And then he sees her, and like he's like, oh, this was a mistake. I should have never done this. And he just like breaks down. And not in that moment, but like one of the parts that got me, she has like a little saying. She'll say, see ya, alligator. And then they'll say, in a while, crocodile. A cute little saying that they say when they're greeting each other. And basically she leaves, she goes in the house. She's like, says, see you later, alligator. And then he just whispers like, in a while, crocodile. And the reason it got me here, this is the part that broke me. I was putting myself in the shoes of the boyfriend. If that happened to my girlfriend and her memory, she just like slowly forgot about me and I can't do anything to help it. And like just losing her that way is just so depressing and sad, because it's not like a normal debilitating disease where you can see them slowly whittling away but they remember their memories. It's worse, and he basically has to move on and cope with it. And just me putting myself in those shoes just kind of broke me, and I'm not describing it in a very good way, but it was I don't know, the way Dan Simmons wrote it just like hit me in the gut. I can't explain it. This is the only time I've ever cried to a book. Anyways, we'll move on from there. Basically, her father is also getting these like visions and being told to sacrifice her to the Shrike on Hyperion. And of course he doesn't want to. And so he's basically getting his story mirrored with Abraham, because he is being told to sacrifice his child like Abraham was as well. And he finally makes the decision to do it after his wife dies. And so that's how he came on the pilgrimage. And then the last two stories after that are that of the detective, Bron Lamia, and the consul. The detective one was fine. It was interesting seeing the AI. I'm not really a noir detective type person, but I still enjoyed it. And it was interesting to see like how she fell in love with the AI, who is John Keats, which is like a poet they keep referencing, her connection to Hyperion and how it brought it all in. But I don't really have much to say about her portion, so we'll move on from that. But then getting to the consul, that was very interesting. Basically like a Pocahontas love story, sorta, to where he is basically a colonizer setting up the warp drives, and he goes there. And the way they deal with time in this story was part of what I found very interesting. So he falls in love with this girl at a party. They have sex, and then he goes away. And he comes back, but because of the way that time debts are handled and standard time versus time traveling in cryogenic, like sleep essentially, he isn't aging, but she is. And so basically she's living her life waiting for him, just for these small moments in these years that they can actually talk to each other. And like he only ages a few years in this time, but she ages through her whole life and dies. They have kids, but he never gets to spend time with his kids or his family, and it's just so strange. And then after he dies, or after she dies, he makes it his mission to stop the colonizers essentially, and causes this whole famous war. And we learn that the consul is actually, I believe, the grandson of the character that we're learning the story about. And he's also, as we learn, the spy. But the group doesn't kill him because, I mean, they can't really do much with that. And, I mean, it was interesting. It reminded me a lot of Avatar, which is funny because they spent a lot of time underwater talking about dolphins, and the new Avatar movie just came out talking about water. And so that was cool. And then that's basically the background story of everyone. There was also Het Matsine, who, like, we thought got killed, and then he randomly was seen walking towards the time tombs. So that sets up everyone. We have Baby Rachel, Sol Weintraub, Lennar Hoyt, Lamia, Consul, Kassad, and I think that's all of them. Maybe Het Matsine as well, the Templar. But, I mean, that's just going over these stories themselves. The atmosphere of the whole world was amazing. The Templar ship is really cool. It reminded me of Saga, which this was written before Saga. A tree ship, another influence possibly from Dan Simmons. And then along with that, just like the world of Hyperion and the mystery around the Shrike is very interesting, and piecing it together. I do plan on reading the other ones. When? I'm not going to promise. If a lot of you like this video, then I'll probably pick it up sooner. But this is probably my favorite book of all time now, to be honest. The way that the emotions I felt reading this book, I've never felt before while reading a book. And that says something. So even as a standalone, I'll take it. And I don't care what the other ones do. If they're bad, it's not going to stop me from enjoying this book. But let me know what you thought overall. Did you like the ending where it's sort of like a Wizard of Oz thing? They're off to see the wizard. Thought that was funny. I wonder if it has different meanings when it comes to like the end of the actual Hyperion storyline. Don't tell me, don't spoil me. Don't spoil me on anything in the future. But if you like, what do you think about Hyperion overall though? Feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Other than that though, if you could leave a like and subscribe, that'd be greatly appreciated. And I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye.